They just had the car running. And the floor jacks under there, the piece of plywood, and all that good stuff. Here is the original 283 emblems I removed, set them on top of a wood chipper, and took a picture of it. That is the 283 emblems that come off this car. This car is originally a 283. The only thing that I can really tell that was missing on this car is the headliner was removed at some time or another. And here's a picture of it. This is looking up at the headliner on the driver's side. So this picture would be just like this if you were looking up. And this is the driver's side. So this is driver's side right here as you're looking up. And our headliner bows are intact. Something else you want to watch out for is these headliner bows do not interchange. You cannot take this headliner bow from here and put it there and vice versa. They only fit in one specific spot, and they have to be numbered and kept in the correct order anytime you ever remove them. There's another Dogfish hubcap. And these, like I said, these are the correct 66s. The 67s did not have the black paint that went on the outside of that there, and they did not have the black paint that went on the inside of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been told, and I did a little research, and I think that's correct. This car had pretty rough floor pans, and they were rough, but they weren't like horrible. But they got the typical rod in it. See, there's the seat there. Had the blue interior there. Had a split bench seat, which I love that. And then this car originally had what remains of it. Now, I pulled some of this out. But this was like my 59 Biscayne, and it had that vinyl flooring, kind of like that. It did not have carpet in this car originally. It had the vinyl flooring. There's a little bit of the remaining part of it. I ripped some of it out because I wanted to see what the floor pan looked like. And the floor looks worse than what it is, but it's really not, because it's all solid right all up in here in this area, the transmission tunnel and all that. All the rot is just sitting right here, and it's got a little remainder if you really kind of see the indentions of it. It used to be a drain plug right in here. Of course, you could see our parking cable right here, but you could see some of the indentions of that drain plug where it kind of fell out. But the window was down on the driver's side door, and that did contribute to some of the rot in the car, but that's not why the floor pans rotted out. The real reason they rotted out is the windshield leaked, as well as the back glass, and it let all that water run down over the package tray and all that, and then just run down, and then as it filled up the floor pan or the seat, it's got a little step, and then it's just started, eventually started running over, and then all that insulation in there that was laying on top of that got a bunch of moisture in it, and it just held it in there, and then it just rotted away. It's got nothing to do with sitting in a field or anything like that. Again, it is a Power Glide car, and there we see it. It is a 300 Deluxe, like I said. And don't mind this. This is just a piece of sheet metal I just set in there just to so your feet wouldn't go through, if that makes sense. But again, the car looks worse than what it is. A lot of this is surface rust in all this area here. The toe boards are very much intact. The transmission tunnel is very much intact. It has got some pits on it, but it's not rotted out. It's not Swiss cheese like we have here. But that is the original steering wheel, the original horn ring, the original cap. And that cap was actually perfect, and then I pulled it off one time, and then I broke that little pin on it. And then they do not reproduce those at all, and which is really hard to find. And it is a non-AC car, like I said. It has an AM radio. That is the original factory radiator. Excuse me, not radiator, radio. That is the original factory paint. It's the original factory blue paint. It does have a dash pad on it. That dash pad's supposed to be blue, but it's faded out to black. And I do have the original gas pedal that goes on top of the throttle linkage and all that. I do have that. And I actually think I still got that to this day. I just took it out, and I think it's sitting on this part of the seat where you can't really see it. But it is there. And the kick panels, I do have all that stuff as well. Here is the other side. As you can see, it's a split bench seat. There's our parking cable, our emergency cable that goes through there. And then our floor pan is pretty much non-existent. But if you look at our transmission tunnel, it's actually intact. It's just from this point down, the flat area of the floor pan, that's what's gone and rotted out. Interesting story. See, there's a piece of the kick panel here. This is the passenger side kick panel. And a little interesting thing here, 66s have the cables mounted to the dash. The 67s have the fresh air vents, the cables that you pull back with the little knobs. They're actually made into the kick panel. Just a little interesting fact there. And these are the original rubber floor mats, because I had both of them that went on the front and the rear part of the car. So I had one that went in front of our back seat and one in front of our back seat. So I had both of them. That is the one right there. They are the blue ones. And I believe they have the Chevrolet bow tie on them as well. I'd like to see a picture of them when they're all unfolded. I wish I would have kept them, but didn't know what I had at the time. This is a picture of the car. And this is something, don't ever do this. Learn from me. This is where I covered it up and everything. There's a three-wheeler in the background there. But I covered it up with a tarp. And to protect it. This was taken during the winter time to keep snow and everything off of it. Don't ever do that. Never, never, never cover a car up like that, because what happens is it traps all that moisture all up underneath that car, and it makes everything flash rust. Don't ever do that. The best thing to do if you want to protect a car is put it underneath the carport, or just keep it in a garage, or keep it somewhere where it's a really dry area. Don't cover it up like that. I'm very against covering a car up like that. I quit using car covers. I do not like car covers. I don't ever cover a car up with a tarp or anything like that. The only way I would ever do that is if something went wrong. It was like a daily driver car and I had to cover it up because I needed to put a window motor or something like that in it. But even then, I still wouldn't cover it up because I'm not going to be lazy about it. I'm going to pull the door panel off and go in there and take and undo the electric window motor and push the window up manually by hand, and then go in there and throw a bolt underneath of it so the window does not fall back down. It's a little common sense. This video is probably going to lead into 2 parts, but that's okay. That's fine. But I wanted to make this series here and document this, because one day it would be nice to get this car back. And I got another video series that I'd like to make on a 73 Chevrolet Caprice. And I hope whoever sees this video that has this car at this time, that's restored it. Last I heard it's in Florida. I really don't know. But I hope they really see this video and they contact me. Please contact me. But I'd really like to see some up-to-date photos of it. And I do have the original, my 67 Chevelle, that 283 that's currently in it. And I have videos on that car. That is the exact same motor right here. So this motor I sold in 2011, and then I recovered it back in 2016, I believe. So I sold it, bought the original motor back, and then it is now currently in my 67 Chevelle. This is a numbers matching car, by the way. Very, very original car. So here is a driver's side fender that I got. This is original fender, a factory GM fender here. It's got a little bit of filler in the bottom of it there, but it's nothing too, terrible there. But it's in a shed there. But this is a really nice straight fender. And this fender was to replace the other fender that got messed up, which is this fender. If you look in the front here, right there is all mashed in. Now, in reality, that could have been fixed, but it was rotted to pieces right in that area too. But again, it could be fixed and saved very easily. So that is the driver's side fender to take care of that issue. This is the hood, and this hood was purchased. This is our original 66 hood, and not sure exactly what it came off of, but it was painted several times. Don't mind the gray primer there. I did that, but the blue and everything else I did not do. But that hood had a lot of issues with it. It was solid, very solid, but it had a lot of issues. It had a crease right in here, and it was really messed up. Just this whole area right in here was very, very messed up. It had a big old crease right there, as you can see, and then it had a pile of just filler all through here. I mean, almost this whole side till you get to about right in here. The whole side was just about full of filler. But that hood was purchased for, I can't remember the exact amount. It was either 50 or 75 bucks. It might have been 100, but it was no more than 100 bucks. I do remember that for a fact. But that hood right there was to replace this hood that was rotted to pieces. These pictures right here do not go with this car, but this is, I did buy a new radiator support. This was not it was not for this two-door post. It's actually for my 67. But this is an example here. I did at that time buy a new radiator support for that car, and this fan spacer you see right here is actually for non-AC cars, and that is very, very hard to find. Very hard. I actually ended up getting that off eBay and almost got outbid on it, but that is a original 66 radiator spacer. And if you look back in the pictures on my two-door post, you can clearly, between the radiator and the radiator support right there, you can clearly see that. You can get this thing to focus here. Now you can see it. I got, looks like a piece of sandpaper or something sitting on top of it. This car has that there. Now some big block cars, the radiator was mounted directly to our radiator support. But that is not the same spacer. It's the exact same spacer, if that makes sense. They're the exact same spacers, but this spacer did not come off this two-door post, if that makes sense. But they are the exact same fan spacers. They are 66 only. 66 only fan spacers. 67 is completely different. 67 is got completely whole new radiator support and a lot of things. The headlight buckets are stamped into the radiator support rather than having removable headlight buckets. And I also purchased inner fenders. This is stuff that goes to my 67, but I'm just showing this. I do not have a record. I'll have to look, but I don't believe I have a record of any of the pictures. I do have 1 or 2 videos on YouTube of it, but I'm not sure if I got a record of the inner fenders at that time that I did purchase. Now, all this is for my 67, because this car was sold in August of 2011. But this is just showing examples. I bought new inner fenders for it, a new radiator support, and I did not buy a hood for it. This was just for my 67 only. And yes, I know that is a 66 hood. I know that. But my 67, that's a whole different story. I was trying to make it a 66, and it's a whole different story. I never did buy a hood for this car here, for the two-door post. Never did. But I did buy a radiator support, inner fenders, and I did get the trunk drop-offs. which I do have some actual pictures of some of this stuff. I hope y'all are enjoying the video so far, because this is something I really wanted to do and something I want to document. I know my videos are sometimes they're kind of silly, you know, and kind of dumb, but I do make serious videos, and this is something I wanted to do. And I hope the person out there, this is a lot of it just for fun, and for the person who currently owns the car, I hope they get in contact with me. I would love to have this car back, and I can tell you everything about that car. But this is the 283 that is out of the two-door post. Now, we look at it, and this is after I recovered it in 2016. Because remember, actually I take that back. This was recovered in September of 2015. 2015 now. And this is not 100% perfect video, but everything I'm telling you about this car, it was a one-owner car. It was a numbers matching car with the 283 two-barrel power glide car, under 100,000 miles. All this is factual, but there are a couple things. This was purchased and recovered in September of 2015, so I want to be correct on that. Now, the valve covers, this motor was completely untouched since 2011. 2011, and I sold this motor in August of 2011. I sold the car and all the parts and everything for $800 in 2011 as well. And I sold the motor first for $1,000 and didn't see it or ever hear again about it. I have a very interesting story on this motor until September of 2015. But this is the exact same motor, as you can see there, and it does have, that is the original canister style filter on it. This is not the original correct colors or the valve covers, then take the carburetor or the balancer down there or the water pump. It's several things have changed, on it, unfortunately. But I do have most of the stuff. I do not have the water pump. I do not have the original intake or the two-barrel carburetor or the valve covers or the exhaust manifolds that went to it. But I do have everything, if this makes sense, to put it back to a two-barrel 283 if I want. Again, this is a 60 over. It's been bored 60 over. The crank and the rods and mains are 1010 undersized. It's got hardened seats put in it. The valve guides, I really don't know a lot about it. I'm sure it has new valve guides, but it has an RV camshaft in it. And, it's been several things, unfortunately, that were changed up on it at that time. And that is the original fan spacer that went to this motor when it was in that car. So I just figured I'd point that out. Here's another picture of the front here. It is the power pack heads, as you can see. That is not the original fuel pump that went to it, but that is a original style that would have went on it. That is the original water pump pulley. It actually did have a shim on it when it was in the two-door post. Now again, that balancer is not original. I believe that's an 8-inch balancer. The water pump, valve covers, intake, carburetor. It's had the fuel pump. It's had quite a few things changed on it, but the long block itself is still the same. That starter that you see in that picture is the factory original matching date coded starter that goes to this 283. This 283 had a 153 tooth flywheel, and that is the original starter to it. This is a April 19th, 1966 283. And that starter was made, it was D166, which is April 16th, 1966. But that is the original matching starter to this 283 and this car. Here is the original flex plate. Still on the 283, I still have it to this day. As you can see, our road draft tube is missing, unfortunately. But I do have all that. But that is the original flex plate that mounted to that Power Glide. Now, some of the numbers on the back of it, right in that area, are hard to make out, but they are there. There's another picture of the starter. That's the original factory starter that came on this 283. Now, the rocker arms are not the original rocker arms. The rocker arm nuts or the quite a few things. All the internals pretty much except for the crank and the rods have now been changed. But it does have, this 283 does have a steel crank in it. And I just wanted to point that out. It does have a steel crank in it. And these are 520 heads, April 19th, again, 1966. This oil pan is a original 283 oil pan from 1966, but is out of a different 66 Chevelle. This oil pan I still have to this day, but the oil pan that was on this 283 originally, unfortunately, was long gone. I don't even remember what happened to it, if I sold it or what, but I actually got this oil pan off another 66 283, so I could put it all back original with the original sheet metal. Unfortunately, this oil pan has a little pinhole and some dents in it right in this area here, but the pinhole could be welded up. But this is a original 283 oil pan. You can just tell by the stampings right in there. And I know it's off of a 66 Chevelle anyway, because the guy that I bought my 67 Chevelle off of is the same guy I got this oil pan from. Alright, these are the numbers right here. And it's hard to see, but they are there. You can see the 810, but it's 383 4810. It's hard to make it out. 383 4810. Yep, 383 4810. And if we look right in here, this is the date code. It is April 19th. 1966, so it would be D196. And this other part right here is the time frame when the motor was actually cast, which is hard to make out on there. I'll have to go look at the motor. There's another picture of the front of it there. There's another 283 sitting over here. That oil pan I just showed you right here, actually came off of this motor that's sitting over here. And I actually got a video, if you go back in my videos there, and I actually have, I think it's a 283 video, something like that. Unfortunately, like I said, this 283 is painted the incorrect colors, but it is actually forward red. Yes, I said that, forward red. But as you can tell, I mean, this is more the correct. I'm not 100%, you know, it's not 100% correct, but this is the correct, we'll say, Chevrolet orange, and then this is the Ford red. So you can clearly tell the difference between those colors. Again, we are missing our original factory dipstick and our dipstick tube, but I do have a original that is now currently on that 283. It's not a original 66 one, but it is a original from back then, and it is the correct one. But this is the same 283 before it was rebuilt. That is the original timing cover, the original Harmont bouncer pulley, and as you can see, it is clearly no Harmont bouncer bolt in that crankshaft snout. This is before it was rebuilt. I just roughed it up, cleaned it up, painted it the Chevrolet orange. That's when it was still in the two-door post. And if we look, that is the same exact motor. photos here. It's the exact same motor. Here's a picture. It's a little blurry, I apologize, but that's the rocker arms, and I'm trying to show the date code on it, which is D196, which is April 19th, 1966. That is on both cylinder heads. So both cylinder heads on this are both April 19th, 1966, as well as the block. And the starter, like I said, is April 16th, 1966. And I have, for fun, on occasion, looked up April 19th, 1966 to see what kind of, if any, big events happened on that day back then, but couldn't find a lot of information on it. And again, there's our oil pan. It is a chrome oil pan at this time, and of course, it's since been removed. And unfortunately, I have to buy a reproduction one because the one I just showed the picture of had a little pinhole in it, which is this one right here. And I mean, it could be repaired. You could weld the hole up and then it'd be fine, and then straighten out some of these dents. But those are the original 283 valve covers, but no, they are not to this motor, but they are, in fact, the 283 valve covers. But they go to the motor that is beside this one, which is hard to see, but it's another motor sitting off to the side, this other side of this 283. Again, there is the starter. That is the original solenoid and starter motor.